days I'm so focused. These days I'm so focused. These days I'm so focused.
What is an entrepreneur? Put simply, an entrepreneur is any business-minded individual capable of identifying the hidden opportunity in a given situation. So in other words, an entrepreneur is capable of seeing what the common man cannot. Where others see adversity, the entrepreneur spots opportunity. With that having been said, I'd like to invite you guys to formally introduce yourselves, as this is a social setting, and give a brief summary of who you are as a young African entrepreneur.
Alright, what's up guys? My name is Nyasha Dawanyi. I'm 18 years old. Dropped out of high school when I was Form 4. Didn't really have a plan as to what I was going to do, but I've been working at our family business for the last 2 years now. And also quite deeply into politics and a little bit of medicine. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, in the context of me being an entrepreneur, me doing entrepreneurial work and being in the entrepreneurial industry, definitely have a lot to share. But a successful entrepreneur is one who is actually more than just an entrepreneur.
My name is Gift Linda. I'm also 18, just finished high school. Lots of people say that one person can change everything.
Yeah.
I believe that it is kind of true, but I believe that in Africa we need to stop having this mentality where, you know, if one person comes up and he's got a great idea, say I've got a multi-million-dollar company in Africa, you know, that's not the end, because then I'll have one until I die. I believe in actually, you know, your legacy. What am I leaving behind? So I believe that's the most important thing that we need to be stamping off of. I love poetry. So I was just like thinking one day at school, you know, I like poetry. What can I do with my poetry? And, you know, again, what can I get other people to do with their poetry? So I just kind of looked around and I thought of the things that, you know, I could, you know, that I thought affected other people. That I, like with the suicide thing, the reason I picked suicide is that, you know, in Zimbabwe there's actually quite a high rate of suicide. You just don't know it because it's shunned upon in our culture. So you'll never hear that he died, but he died because of suicide. But actually there are a ton of deaths because of things like suicide. So I just, you know, a lot of people disagree with it because it's kind of going against the culture. But essentially the reason I did that is so topics like suicide, with racism, and, you know, at time even with relationships and things like that. The idea is to get poets to come and like try and use their poetry to actually make a difference. So the idea is that they will act as like, I don't know, beacons. So they spread awareness and actually get people realizing that, you know, this is a real thing. And, you know, once you get people close to you, you know, writing poems about like suicide, you know, you think about it just a bit more and you also think, how can I help? So yeah.
Go on to you.
Hi everyone, I'm Lloyd Munanga, actually not from Harare, I'm from Bulawayo. I am 25 years old, which means I did my high school I think like 7 years ago. So I'm a student at HIT, and I suppose this setting is quite relevant to me because it is an entrepreneurial university. Every single year since your second year you have to do an innovative project. So basically that involves like entrepreneurship, like stuff like value addition and whatnot. So I guess maybe this is why this pertains to me, but also I think entrepreneurship has a lot to do with self-actualization in a way, because you're sort of like not conforming, and you create employment and you create wealth. What I'm passionate about is, I'm passionate about people discovering, like, I'll put it in a mining context, like hidden gold, basically. I think I kind of grew up not knowing like much about myself or what I was good at and whatever. And then when I had that real moment, I think I was like 21 or 22 or something, whatever. I just started discovering like stuff about myself. I also became passionate, like to share that with people and to encourage people and to get people to like see themselves as they are, to put it simply. And yeah, I would say I'm passionate about a lot of things, but that's just one thing off the top of my head, and one thing that I think is relevant to this setting.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Hello everyone, my name is Emo Siba, and currently waiting for my A-level results that are coming out really soon, and please don't talk about that. Yeah, and otherwise I'm really happy to be part of a platform like this, because at times you're at home and you're waiting for results or you're doing whatever, and you really want to get to meet different minds, like I'm forgetting the speaker say that, really want to meet different minds to hear different opinions so that you can better yourself, right? And also you can inspire others that way. So this is a really great platform for young minds, and thank you, Nyasha, for giving us such.
Sure thing.
Hello everyone, Leonard up here. My apologies for being late. I had to attend to an emergency, but better late than never. So I'm currently studying at university, Stellenbosch University. I'm doing financial accounting, BCom financial accounting, and you know, like, I have to agree with everything that has been said so far. Personally, I have had quite the journey. Looking back at high school, I know I've always been the very introverted guy with lots of social anxiety, but ever since I began my journey at Stellenbosch, you know, things have changed. I think if you get a different perspective on how things are supposed to be, then you can, you know, really guide yourself and so forth. So thank you, and I'm really excited to hear what's left of the discussion and what you all have to say.
My name is Tanya Zochambwana, but you can just call me Tanya because that's enough. I'm 18. I'm going into upper 6 at St. John's High School in Emeraldo. And the reason why I came today, I'm not really interested in being an entrepreneur, but then I'm really interested in economics and changing the current economic situation in Zimbabwe, especially in terms of benefits and taxes, and just generally the way things work in Zimbabwe is super dysfunctional, and I feel like someone needs to take care of that. But I do believe the entrepreneurs and the economy, they're very closely integrated. That's why I'm here, and I feel like it's relevant.
Okay, my name is Chelsea Mapara. I'm 18 I'm going to 6 at the Dominican convent, and like Tanya, I'm not really, I can't say I'm not interested in entrepreneurial work. It's just that I haven't really been exposed to that much of it. So I'm here as like a test of it, see what it's like. I'm more into politics and stuff, like how things are functioning in Africa, more politics. But you also can't separate that from the economy, as you're saying, and people that define the economy are entrepreneurs. So I'm here to see how people like that work.
I'm Nyasha Dawanyi. I'm 17 and going for upper 6 in Zimbabwe. Entrepreneurship is what I aspire to be, but then doing goes to be a cricketer. So I'm still finding my way there, but then I pray that one day. Alright.
I'm just going to put 3 words out there. Not necessarily put a question, and then get us to discussion on those 3 words. So, it's governance in any nation, but specifically governance in Zimbabwe. Youth, anyone under the age of 35, and then it's opportunity. So I guess that actually is the question. How do those 3 things relate to each other? How do the youth, right now, in the situation that we are in, how can we relate to governance? And how can governance relate to youth? And how can the youth relate to opportunity to the youth?
To be able to take advantage of opportunities, they need the government because they are youth. And most of them would need like capital, however small, they need the government's help. And also, not just in the form of capital, but maybe when you have your idea, you approach the government and you tell them I want to do A, B, C, D. So they are so related, and the government has a responsibility. I think they do. They have confirmed they have like a fund, a specific amount set towards youth and whatever they're planning to do for the year. I don't know if they do. I think they do. They should. I think they do.
I think the way the government and the youth interrelate, and I think it's something that's lacking in this country, I'm not actually sure, but I think there should be some form of discipleship between the government and the youth so that their ceiling is our floor, and that would generally give not just the youth but the nation a better opportunity to do better than what we're doing now. Because then, like, if it's just a recurring mistake and like there's no like knowledge being passed down as to why or how things are happening in the country, then
when our president chose a new cabinet, people say there's not enough women, there's not enough young people. Exactly, there's no young people, but that's because there's no young people in parliament. You can only choose 6 people. Six people outside of parliament to take ministerial positions. There's no young people in parliament. And then you go to his own party, and even to MDC and all these other parties. Which young people do you choose in those parties? It's because that element is lacking. There actually are no young people. Shami says 40 years old, even the UN doesn't recognize him as a young person.
The big guys in politics really don't. I mean, they might say they do because they feel like they have to say it, but they don't really want to say. How many times have they spoken about? They've said it. People who haven't, people who didn't fight the war shouldn't be able to run this country as long as we're alive. Which is like, I don't understand the concept. I mean, yes, you guys are there, whatever, but they should be there to teach us. And, you know, like what you know, share with us. Because if they're not, like you were saying, if they're not being given these positions when they're all gone, which is gonna be really soon. Like, no offense to anybody, but I'm just assuming they're retiring soon. It'll be us, and we won't know anything. So I just think they should stop. I mean, they say, hey, youth should come, they should be involved. We're leaving ABCD for the youth, but are they real?
So what
are they
can
welcoming
we do
us?
to make them?
I don't know how seriously. I don't know how seriously they take junior parliament here, but in Bulawayo, it's like I think they probably yes. No, I'm sure. I grew up in Bulawayo.
Even though I don't hate the really people or anything, I was just like.
No, let's say we can talk about them. I'm joking. I was kidding. But I think they just like stick to like orphanages and like the stuff that's like low impact.
Exactly.
Doesn't really push any boundaries or actually engages. So I actually don't even remember the last time I heard about junior parliament. It must have been like 8, 9 years ago.
To be honest.
I feel that as the youth, as much as it's hard for us to get into politics, I would really love to get involved. But then the first thing that we have to understand is that, or they have to understand is that it's impossible. Because I don't know for how long that I've been trying to look for the councillor in my area. It's impossible to find him. The only thing that I know that he did was he came, I think, 2018, when we were about to have elections. And he was like, we're going to build a proper school in this area. Right? I was there. But then he was like, because there's a shopping center, and then he was like, every shopping center needs a public toilet. So he started building this car 2 rooms, right?
Yeah.
I'm telling you like this, it's been 5 years now. It's still on foundation. He won't disappear. You can't even get his number. It's impossible. Even if I got his number, if I called him, sir, can I please meet with you? He's probably going to tell me, I'm really busy, right? So I think this comes down to us now. The opportunity that we have. It's not about our government setting up opportunities for us. It's time that us as the youth go out there and say that no, we're going to create our own opportunities. If it's from jobs, if it's from anything, for like community development, let it come from us. And then for the government to link the 3 all together, right? We're supposed to know that for the government to be there, it's up to us. Aren't we the majority in the country? So imagine if we're going to say that no, we aren't going to vote for any old man this year. We're going to vote for this young man. This young man, that's there. 2020, we're voting for him. I'm telling you, he'll be the next president.
Our government is smart, like he was saying. They're very educated. These guys go to certain people. Maybe you're not one of them, like where you live in your neighborhood, you guys are not part of it. But there are people in not just Kumusha, even in some high densities. They are, you know, why do you think they have loyal youth? ZANU-PF youth are loyal to the core. Why? Because those guys,
Can I answer you? That's indoctrination.
Exactly, but it's working, is it not?
The only thing that you knew was ZANU-PF. Wait, can I get into this? when you grew up, you're still growing up, yes. The only thing that you heard of was ZANU PF. Like at some point in last year, I was like, you know what, guys, I'm going to join ZANU PF. Whether it's rotten or whatever, I'm going to improve it. You get it? It's because we've been indoctrinated. I remember in primary school, I used to have a teacher from Mashingo, right? That guy used to say, they call themselves they've got a term for themselves. We're the best, we're the most educated. We do this, we're great. And you know what, I got to Form 4 thinking, people from Mashingo are just dead. Right? And then in Form 4 I actually learned like that there was a place in Chipinge, like where it's really there's like witchcraft at its best. And every situation that I got in, because I'm not a fighter, and I know this guy will probably beat me. I'll go, if you touch me, I'm going to chip in. And I'll walk away. Like the guy will be like, hey, fun, but I'm sure. So that's the same thing. People have just been indoctrinated that, you know what, it's like this. This is what it's supposed to be like. But then it's not supposed to be like that. The youth are supposed to go register to vote. The youth are supposed to vote for the person that they want in power. And for the government, they're supposed to be capable people of actually leading the government. But then in this current day, I don't see anyone who's capable.
At school, we were having a conversation in maths, because my maths teacher is just one of those. And then he was talking about the whole, we ousted our former president, right, because he's old and whatever. Those were the majority of the reasons that he's old. But the guy we replaced him with is like 75, and he's running for elections next year. If he was just there for the time being, it's okay, but he's running. Like, what is that? Why do politicians get an extension? Why do you get to 150?
The thing about retiring and then getting into government, the reason they made that, or they wanted people to feel that way, is so that, though it actually doesn't work, I'm just putting it across, it actually doesn't work. If you retire, then get into government, you already have money, therefore you don't need to steal. That was what they thought. But clearly, there's still more.
I think if you're old enough, if you're supposed to retire, retire. Don't retire and send me government. If they want to up the age of retirement, sure, let's get to 65, 70 and end there. Because if there's no age limit on being in government, that means if I'm still able to walk at 150, then I can run the country, and you guys can tell me nothing because
I think the age limit wasn't there because of our current, like our past leader. I think yes.
So many youths and teenagers of our generation are regarding formal education as unimportant and following their dreams instead. Do you guys think they're right or wrong in doing so?
I think it's a little bit of both. I mean, when our parents were, I actually have a question maybe similar to that. So yeah, when our parents were growing up, formal education mattered a lot because that was it. If you go to school, be a doctor, be a lawyer, be this, that, it was a straight road. But 21st century times have really changed. People are making money from literally everything. Yes, doctors, lawyers, the like, they still make money. Do your formal education, you still have the, you know, you can still make it. But it's not like the only way. You can, yes, decide to not go to school and follow your dreams, because if it's what you want to be, an entrepreneur. How many gamers do we have out there? People are creating games and people are addicted to FIFA. That guy has made a lot of money. People sit there and do nothing but play FIFA the whole day. So
I think you'd be lucky if you skipped formal education and you made it big. I think you'd be lucky. I think it's foolish to underplay the importance of formal education, because like you said, it is the 21st century and now you can study pretty much anything. Of course, and a very wise book says study and show yourself accredited. Part of being a successful engineer is being influential, and you can't exactly be influential if you don't, at least if you're good at, I don't know, like dance or singing or whatever, you can still study it and, like, you know, just have that accreditation, and it gives you more influence than someone who, like, didn't and they're just good at it. And I think also formal education gives you a discipline. It instills discipline and character in you, which is much needed than just being talented at something and then making it. So I think the importance of formal education shouldn't be underplayed. So 95.5, the other 5% is because I think you could get character and discipline like through like hardships and other life lessons, and you could still make it that way. And also that 5% compensates for people that don't have access to formal education, but then still make it. But I still think that formal education shouldn't be underplayed.
Like if you look at countries that aren't so educated, as well educated as Zimbabwe, like South Africa, they kill, they steal, the crime rate is through the roof. And in Zimbabwe, we're educated, but we're not as rowdy. So I think for that reason, formal education is important. There's certain things that you learn in school that don't even have anything to do with your future career, that you learn, that you can't learn anywhere else. And it's also just important to have something to fall back on. Like, that's speaking on people who have like dreams to be actresses, you know, singers, things like that. I think it's important to always have something to fall back on, because I feel like, well, to me personally, financial stability is important.
Right, so first of all, I think, you know, one of the things that our education system lacks is that from a very young age, we need to actually start, you know, this journey of self-discovery.
Yeah.
Right? I believe that's the most important thing. So when you say is formal education necessary, I'm gonna twist it up a bit, and I'm gonna say that it is necessary up to a certain point, right? I mean, if I'm not educated, you know, if I don't go to if I don't finish grade 1, right? That's another thing from not finishing upper 6. I think they're two different things, right? So I do have to go through primary school so that I learn. I need to, like, you know, I just need to be able to do certain things, right? I need to be able to do certain things, right? But I do believe that once you get to a certain stage, say like your 4th form, right? You're about 16 now. You can think quite well, right? You have learned practically, you know, you've learned most of the stuff that you need to learn. So at this point, I still feel that you're able to make a decision. You need to be able to say, who am I, and most importantly, what do I want and what do I want to be, right? If I want to be a doctor, it is very impractical for me to drop out, because it's going to be harder for me to make it, right? My dream becomes that much further, right? But if, you know, if I'm like, I don't really want any part of the school stuff, then honestly, you're wasting time. I think you should just drop out and start, you know, going for what you want to do. Financial stability, you know, I believe that, I really hate that answer. Why? Because I feel like the biggest thing that keeps, especially us as in Africa and us as Zimbabweans, I feel like the reason that we're not, one of the reasons that we're not, you know, there, is because so many people are worried about financial stability. And I know it might sound silly, right? The reason I say that, right? the reason that I say that is that once you've got that in the back of your mind, right, and you've got an idea, right, I assure you that 9 times out of 10, you're gonna be like, instead of pursuing this, you know, financial stability is better, I'm just gonna finish school, I'm gonna go get this job, right? And in fact, at this point, it's I'm gonna try and get this job, right? So, you know, I think you should, you know, aiming for financial stability is a very good thing, but it's not your first thing. Your first thing is to be like, where do I want to be, right? So you say, I want to be a doctor, so you're gonna be like, I'm gonna achieve financial stability through being a doctor, right? So it shouldn't be the first thing on your list where you're like, because I want this, right, I should go that way. You get my drift, right? So first things first, I want this, so I'm gonna go this way, and I'm gonna, because, you know, it is what you make it, right? And on that point, I'm just gonna bring up another point. You know, like with entrepreneurship, right? You've got, I like to think of it as you've got 2 types, right? You've got that guy, right, that will go through school, right? He'll say that I love engineering. So he'll get his engineering degree, and then he'll use what he loves to do. He'll mend it into what he wants, right? So he loves engineering. So he'll mend that, and then he'll start an engineering firm, right? That's entrepreneurship. It is, right? You see it a lot with things like dentists and people like that. Then there's the other guy who says, you know what, I don't really like school. I don't really have like one passion, but I just know that I don't want to work for anyone. I just know that, you know, I want to create. Right? That guy can drop out. You see, you just need to like know who you are, what you want. I think that's the main thing. Yeah, so I say it's a 50-50.
Can I say something about just 2 points? First one is that some people don't have that luxury of sometimes you have to do what you need to do so that you can do what you want to do. And sometimes, being more extreme, you need to do what you need to do so that the following, like your kids, can do what they want to do. So sometimes people don't have that luxury to say, oh, I'm good at this. So sometimes you need that financial stability because you're trying to break the cycle of poverty in your family.
Here's the thing. Even when I was still in school, I used to hear people saying that, you know what, we're wasting our times coming here. We should be out there doing things that we love. Let's take examples of people that are actually billionaires right now. Those people, they don't have professional qualifications and whatnot. But then when you come back to it now, you see that those people that are said to have been college dropouts or whatever, if you look at, does Mark Zuckerberg have professional qualification?
Yeah, you got one afterwards.
Exactly. But then you dropped out of Harvard, I think. Was it Harvard? Yes. Right. But then you're there, you're probably learning maybe at average school in Arai, and you're like, I want to drop out. The comparison or your situations are much different, right? He has a passion, yes, he can go for it because, to be honest, like she said, he's already financially stable in a way compared to the person in Zimbabwe, right? So the person in Zimbabwe, what I would think is that instead of following your passions just yet, I think you should go to school because school is a micro society.
Yeah.
At school, you're going to meet the person who's cruel. You're going to meet the person who's kind. You're going to meet the person who's an intellect, the person who's a sportsman, the person who's going to do whatever.
Yeah.
So you socializing with such people now, it opens your mind. You're going to figure out whether you want to be a doctor. Because you see, I used to have a friend, every time someone would get hurt doing something, right? You'd see him running there, dude, are you a first aider? No, but then I just like helping people. And then that's the time when you hear people say, you should have been a doctor, you should be a doctor or something like that. Yeah. You're finding yourself out. And those are things that you can only get at school. Instead of when you're back at home, you're in your community, yes, but then you're enclosed in your house. You're not going to get that exposure. Yeah. So I feel that it's very necessary for us to get that education. And when we have secured that education and we have maybe found that financial stability, we can go on to other endeavors and find our passion.
Of course, that makes sense.
Formal education should go hand in hand with passion. If you feel like you have to be in school to make it, like you're saying, maybe your situation at home doesn't allow you to drop out and start up a business, because for startups you do need a certain amount of capital, right? So I think just align them. Don't go and study medicine at the UZ because you feel like, you know, I can get a job at Harare Hospital, when what you really want to do is be a public speaker. Go do something related to public speaking. And I do acknowledge that formal education is a really, okay, the environment is really good for growth. Like, you get to discover who you are, and just being around people your age a lot, it's not really good, but it's not terrible either. So, yeah.
I'm very forgetful, so I wrote some stuff down. And the first thing is I'll go to what you said about discipline and character and how it helps with your discipline and character. I genuinely don't believe that. I went to school for all of the years I went to school for, and it did not make me more disciplined, nor did it actually improve my character. But the best example of this is how I work with people with master's degrees and all that kind of stuff, and they can't even do some of the most basic things you'd expect them to do. Why does that happen? It's because people in schools are forced, or the formal education sector, are forced to achieve something they might not necessarily desire to achieve. And so what leads someone to have great discipline and great character is when you genuinely care about what you're doing.
Which school did you go to?
I went to St. John's College.
But you know what, I feel like I actually forgot to say that. Like, it was the first point I forgot. Your discipline, was it discipline and what?
Character.
And character does not come from your school.
That's true.
It comes from your culture, it comes from your home. That's where it comes from, right?
Yeah.
Or at least for the vast majority of people, that's where it comes from, right? School will just try and add on to that. In fact, school has a set curriculum, right? Yeah. So unless you're saying that you are exactly what your school wanted you to be, then exactly. It's not.
It's just, look, to produce results, you need to have discipline.
But it's not real.
That's extremely debatable.
Because honestly, it's not real discipline which you're practicing. You're just practicing necessity which is needed.
And doesn't formal education include tertiary as well?
It includes all of it. And here's the thing.
No, but necessity is
discipline,
needed. That's good.
Guys,
Here's
I
the thing.
feel like we're looking for one answer, but I feel like
No, of course, the difference.
To varying extents, I really feel like, okay, personally, I still stand by the fact that education domesticates people. Because like, especially at my school, there's so many people who come to school to grow.
I also
And they have really broken homes, but they come to school to grow and they learn a lot.
Environment. Schools, actually, I think schools not the best place for discipline. Because once you're surrounded by people that have a similar mindset to that, or people who can tolerate your rowdiness, or who, like, you know, exactly. So you just, I'm not saying school doesn't, to some extent it does. I mean, you grow. But to say discipline, I disagree. Like, I also really want to say that I actually have it right here.
Well, does that depend on the school? Because like, if you look at like Riverton, it's known for like taming the wild.
Here's the thing though, and this is exactly what I'm trying to say. Is that's not discipline. That's necessity when it's needed. Proof of this is those people in the workplace when they actually live when they when they come when they come back from holiday, do you see any discipline there?
Okay, some of them don't change, but some of them
environment as well.
Yeah, I learned how to study at university personally. That's why I think that.
And here's the thing: here's what I believe. I believe you made the personal decision to be a disciplined individual, and then the school, the environment which you were in, fostered that because you'd made that personal decision. The school did not make that decision for you. Proof of this is probably some of the students in your class. Are they disciplined people? Is everyone in your class disciplined? No, but you take the same classes, you go to the same school at the same time with the same lecturer.
Now you just
You're looking at school as something that's supposed to have an immediate effect on your character.
Yeah.
What actually happens is that sometimes the things that you learn and your age, they aren't going to complement each other. There are times when you're in upper 6, it's your final year, you're supposed to be studying. You're like, no, let's go Omuni out there, let's go party, let's go do whatever, right?
That's indiscipline, right?
Yeah, no, but then that's exactly yes. But not, and then you're going to notice how maybe in January or February you're going to be like, I should have been studying. But I think that's because it's not like an immediate effect that school has on you. I think there's the long-term effect that we're actually forgetting. How you're going to be when you leave school. The character that you're going to leave school with. You might be like a rowdy someone, but then after you leave school and you're in a different environment, don't you think that the character that you got from school is the one you're going to carry forward?
I highly doubt that. Yeah. And I will go back to the fact that I work with, I'll give an example. There's a lady that I sit next to every single day with 3 master's degrees, one in law, one in economics, the other one in business admin. She has gone through all of the school you might want to go through. She is not disciplined. Her character is one of the worst characters that I've ever seen. That's why I go back to the fact that he made the personal decision to be disciplined. But I will agree to the fact that school does help you leave with a certain kind of flair. I won't even go to certain things like character. It's not even a character, because character is a huge thing, and so is discipline. A little flair that school gives you, which allows you to not say the wrong things in the wrong places, and just a few things like that.
Intelligence.
It's social intelligence. Exactly.
There's a big difference between character and social intelligence.
I would say, in regards to dropping out of school, either formal or informal, it's important to realize the context of your situation and in your life. Exactly like what he said. My dad really would have wanted to be an entrepreneur, but the thing is, my dad finished school at the age of 16. My dad lived in Kumusha. My dad's first job was herding cattle. He's not about to, try some crazy stuff and try to be the next Zuckerberg. He had to do, like what he said, what he needed to do so that his kids can do what his kids wanted to do. But, like also what he said, and I think what you alluded to too, is the fact that sometimes in life later on, if you do what you need to do, you might have the opportunity to do what you want to do. And he ended up doing that. But I would say context is very important. And also understand that if you do drop out of school like right now, you have to actually grind 10 times more than someone who isn't. I don't think people understand that.
Isn't dropping out of school like a bit drastic? Do you ever feel like I should have just stayed in school? Or you feel like you're closer to finding yourself?
Personally?
Yeah.
I think, and this goes back to the point I'm trying to make now, is once you drop out of school, you then realize that as soon as me and him both go for a job interview, they're going to look at him first before they look at me, because I don't have the qualification. So what does that do to me? I grind 10 times more than him, because I know all he's going to care about is his damn paper. I'm going to go beyond the paper. I'm going to be smarter than someone who has a master's degree, but I'm going for a job of someone who has just a normal degree. So you need to understand the context of where you are and understand that you're gonna have to grind, and you're gonna have to grind hard.
Right, so I think my input is, okay, the contrast between formal education and being an entrepreneur dropping out of school. I think you really have to figure out what you want to do. You really have to know what you want to do. And I think formal education is a great advantage because you're against a world that is formally educated, so you need to know what they know. So I think formal education is really important for that. And looking at entrepreneurship, I think when you evaluate these two things, with entrepreneurship, you need to be innovative, right? You need to be organized, and I think a great way, to kickstart to your entrepreneurship is formal education. So you might not be able to go to tertiary education, but I think primary education, secondary education is a really good start. Then tertiary education is a good advantage. Personally, what I would do if I was to drop out, I'd get my undergraduate degree and then, decide not to work for anyone and just start my own thing, something.
I think sometimes people drop out not because they want to start their own thing, but because school's just not for you. Like, there are people who are really not, I don't want to say smart, but they're not academically smart. Formal education is not for them. There are a lot of people like that. And I remember when I was doing my O's, I'd be like, okay, this is ordinary level, everyone's supposed to pass through it. But it's really not. For some people, it's not because they're not trying, whatever, it's just not for them. So when you drop out, you go and you find a job, and, you make things work, because formal education is not going to take you anywhere if you're not good at it. You'll be one of those people that go to school, cram, pass an exam, and then when the job comes, to put everything that you're supposed to have been learning to the test, you know nothing. So,
yeah, sure, absolutely. So it all comes down to context, like what you said. It depends in your own situation, like what are you up against. Yeah. So you have to, take the appropriate course of action. And I think strategy is also important, because you can't just go out riding into the sunset without knowing anything.
The question is, should we be looking for foreign investment or aiming to generate the revenue by ourselves in the country through things like exports? So the problem with foreign investment is that you start to see that you have a quick boost, and then because they're all foreign entities, they all have
home back.
They have a home.
Yeah.
They have a home.
Yeah.
So I'm pretty sure we've actually done something similar to this in Geo. Like, so essentially the majority of the money comes back out to that company's investors that are outside the country, and that company's like HQ or whatever.
But what are we benefiting from foreign investments? We're getting job creation in our own country.
No, but you've got to ask you, it's so short term, right? And even if the job creations are long term, right? This is when
you can't build a firm short term, it's long term.
Right? No, but then that's the problem. It actually becomes a problem, because you've got to look at your country, then you've got to start worrying about your people. Right? If I've got a ton of foreign investment, what happens is that the biggest, and the thing is, if it's a foreign investment, these tend to be the biggest companies within their fields.
Of course, yeah.
Right? So, for example, if Walmart was to come into Zimbabwe, they are highly likely to just dominate. Like, you probably start seeing that it's impossible for me to start up a little supermarket, because the competition is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
You get it? So that's the kind of problem. So you've got a case where it's dominating the industry, so it's got the majority of the market share. Most of the money is going out, right? It seems okay. Now the general public will actually be okay with it, because there are more jobs, right? There's better foreign exchange and things like that. So it seems better, right? But then for the actual people, right? How does your country get better? Because what's happening is you're growing at a rate, right? That's controlled by this company that's in another country that's growing faster than you.
Can I ask you a question now?
Yeah.
Walmart comes in.
Yeah.
You want to start your own store, you can't, because Walmart is obviously killing it, right? I get that.
Yeah.
But what do we do right now in a place where Zimbabwe is really struggling? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
like, we're really struggling. And there is no money for Chelsea to go start her business, for her to start bringing the jobs. Maybe Apple actually has to come and build a few factories here, like what they did in China, with Nike in China, all those different things.
People in Zimbabwe should realize that in economic crisis, that's when the big people are born. There are more opportunities, there are more ideas that haven't been implemented in Zimbabwe than in other countries.
How do I implement
But if
it
we
if I
have
have no money in my bank account?
This is where the
So government.
We just said the government doesn't even have money to
No, okay, but then no. The thing is, the government is concentrating more on trying to attract foreign investment than trying to like find ways to raise money.
I think I would like to come back to what you're saying, that if you bring in foreign investors, they're probably going to go back with the money, right? For the past years, right? For the past years, we had a 51-49 thing going on. And then the Zimbabweans, you got so poor and you're like, no, bring the Chinese people to us. Bring them. They'll bring us development, they'll bring us money. And I think that for a second, that 51-49 thing disappeared.
The Chinese are very devious,
right? And it just took a year. There was a liquidity crunch in Zimbabwe. The Chinese had gone off with all the money. Next thing, you wouldn't see any Chinese on the streets. But then, I think we went for like, what, 6 months? Everywhere you go, Chinaman, Chinaman, right? Now, do you see any around? Because they took all the money and they shut.
It's short term, right? Like all of this. It will be nice for a bit, but not really nice because they're going to take the money. So once we have foreign direct investment, whatever. What's your plan after that? Seeing as it's short term and it's not going to last forever and it's not really beneficial to the people. So
what happens is, if a company is going to come, like this, the company called Puredrop is also Zimbabwe. It's a foreign company. But they came to Zimbabwe, they set up a plan for like, I think it was for around 4 million to 5 million in Zimbabwe. They took the cooking oil industry, right? People were employed. They're involved in what is the community activity. They give back to the community. So in Masasa, the area that they're in, that means that there's development in a way. So imagine if we're going to have 5 pure drops, or 10 times, like companies 10 times larger than pure drop coming to Zimbabwe, investing at least 2 billion.
my question
Can you
is,
just imagine
like, I get that, but I'm saying, let's say all of these mini companies come and it only lasts maybe 5-10 years, right?
Sure.
After that,
here's the thing
what's
though,
the plan?
Pepsi came here and then they spent 35 million. Pepsi will not spend 35 million for 5 to 10 years.
You know,
They're here.
for it to be significant.
And the
Yeah,
plant,
yeah,
and mind you, the plant will remain there. The plant for Pepsi is there.
Is there? I've seen it. It's
If
the
you're
biggest
gonna
thing
have-
we've ever seen.
If we're going to have a building, built there by an investor, it's going to be there. It's going to be in our country, and we're going to utilize it.
I think the only issue is when Pepsi makes the money, how much are they allowed to take back home? And can we regulate how much they're allowed to take back home?
The biggest constraint in Zimbabwe's development is actually the sanctions imposed. So we don't actually have foreign investment, and that's actually deteriorating our growth as a nation. So it definitely is necessary.
The danger I feel with foreign investment is that we're being exploited by these countries and we think they're helping us. So like if you look in the US, they actually restrict foreign investment unless it's financial investment, not like building things and taking over.
Because they have enough money.
Do any of you guys know what actually built America? When did America come?
All the slave trade, the sugar plantations.
That's not in America. No.
The
That's
roaring
wrong.
20s.
That's not true. What happened? When did America's economy become great?
In the 19th.
Ask yourselves. What happened? No, but why? Don't talk about the slave trade.
Because
That's not when its economy boosted enough. It wasn't enough.
It was
That was just an okay country.
The 1920s.
Right. What happened is that it actually came down to a few individuals, right? People like Carnegie, Rockefeller, what's his name?
Because the largest
who owns BP?
gold
Rothschild as well.
Yeah.
All of those guys.
Because
That's
they have the
what
largest
makes-
gold. There's the largest gold reserves. That's why
No, but we can't complain about resources. Like, we looked at our country.
No,
Yeah.
exactly.
We
That's
can't
why
even complain
we
about
can't
resources.
complain about resources. That's why we need the foreign
Yeah,
investment.
Let's be serious. Our national budget for the past, for the past 10 years has been around 5 billion.
Yeah.
The highest it's gone, maybe it would have gone to 7 billion. Not 7 billion, 6.5 billion. There were times when we had on paper the budget would be 5 billion, but then in practicality the budget would be like 2 billion.
There are types, right?
Okay.
There's an investment in the sense that Pepsi can come into this country, set up here, and then there's the investment literally where I just got a foreign investor, someone in terms of capital, right? Like I'm talking about money, literally.
Yeah.
Right? Those investors are there. So there's this quote that actually says that, great countries are made by the people that plant a tree in the backyard that they will not see. You guys are worried about getting your jobs today, tomorrow. That's why you're so keen on direct foreign investment where you have these countries coming straight in. Right? That's why I'm saying that like there are different types. Like, the national railways of Zimbabwe, all these things like that. Okay, so the government wants to revive all these things, but what they're doing, right, is that they're actually trying to bring in investors to revive the industry. Have you ever asked yourselves why they're doing things like that?
Where would the money come from?
Huh?
Where would the money come from?
Why else? Why else? No, why else? Don't just talk about money, but why?
You have to remember.
Why would the government be willing to give out, to practically give away the majority of its railway service? Why?
Okay, I need to explain this point. You have to understand that we don't have our own currency. We're using other currencies. Therefore, if we had a reserve bank, then we could, how money creation and stuff, monetary policy, fiscal policy, that stuff. Therefore, if we had that proper foundation of our own reserve federal bank, then we could create money, put in money into the economy, but we don't have that, so we have to rely on.
Even if we did have it, yes, right, because of the economics of it, it has to be backed up by something.
Yes.
It has to be backed up by something. So even if today we've got a currency, it's not going to make us richer.
It's not, but it's a stepping stone.
I do think they just come here to chill in Zimbabwe and make Zimbabweans rich. That's not their objective.
Right.
Their objective is to make themselves rich, and they're just using you to do it.
Our family business was invested in by people in America and people in Russia, right? These people put in $400,000. They are sleeping as we speak. We are slaves.
No, but
like
that's the idea.
Wait. That's number one. Number two, it is not enough. Our company, the money that they put into our company, is not even enough to create 10 jobs. It didn't even create 4 jobs. We don't have enough companies for that to work. That's a long-term solution, but it's not a short-term solution. It's not. Maybe
they did it themselves, which means we can do it ourselves.
Are you sure Americans are not looking for foreign investment?
I'm saying that it's possible to do it on your own.
So like there's all these other ideas and like just the information boom and whatever, blah blah blah. So how do you foster something that is both innovative and sustainable in such a competitive arena that is the market and the entrepreneurship playing field?
If you look at Google, Bing, Amazon, eBay, etc., they do really similar things. It's just the way they offer their services is really different. Even
it's
social
the customer
media.
relationship that's important.
That too.
Yeah.
So I think it's just do something that's, if you can think of something completely outside the box, shoot, go for it. Yes, well done. But you can also do something that has been done before, just make it better than what you've seen. It's not innovation, it's just better. Because people go for what's amazing.
I think with the current situation that we're in right now, the environment, it's really hard to think of something. Like the other day I was with a group of friends and we were saying, let's think of something to do. I think we spent like 2 hours just saying, let's go home, right? So I think it's best that you look at things that they improve them, make them quality, and people will be attracted.
So I think once you become big, once you make I don't know what it is with people who are in business. Once you become big, you can. You just now want to exploit, because once you have money, you want to have more. It doesn't. If you sustain. I disagree. I think if naturally you're making more profits than you did in the beginning. It's just that now you're going to be making the same amount of profit probably as you were in the beginning, and you feel like you can make more, so you might as well, go for second best when you don't really have to. But you know what? Whatever.
Integrity and passion, that's gonna like help you to weather. That's gonna help you like stand the test of time. Because if I get into medicine and I don't really believe in the Hippocratic Oath and whatever that comes with it, even if the economic situation isn't like suitable for a doctor in Zimbabwe right now, if I'm faithful to my trade and whatever, like I'm gonna weather the guy who doesn't care really about the ethics of medicine better, and like the promotion's gonna come to me eventually, because like good things come to all who wait and whatever. So anyways, I said that to someone, then we went to like eat salsa in a back alley somewhere, and then I thought like, you see these shows like South African, on South African broadcasting, like you see these shows about these random people, like, and it's people in the townships, like they just started like their business, they never thought they would be on TV, but it actually becomes like a brand name, and they get like coverage, so that tourists see it and then they get support and it becomes a brand name and whatever. So basically what you were saying like about quality and like loyalty to your customers, and also what you were saying about you don't necessarily have to come up with something new. We're actually taught that you don't have to reinvent the wheel. Actually, in entrepreneurship, there's an entrepreneurial technique called the scamper method. If you're trying to penetrate a market, you take everything that's in that.
What's the abbreviation again?
Scamper.
Scamper.
So it's substitute, combine, adjust, I think, modify, or modify or minify. Put to another use, eliminate, and I forgot what the R stands for. So basically, if you're trying to penetrate a market, you take let's say you want to get into the takeaway business, you take KFC, you take Nando's, you take McDonald's and all that stuff, right? So then you look at all of them like that. So you see what you could substitute. Maybe if it's the logo or the menu, whatever, right? All that stuff. And then all the good things about the things, then you can combine those, and things that you'd adjust, things that you'd modify, things that you'd put to another use. Maybe like seating arrangements, instead of having the fryer at the back, I'll put it in front, even though that's weird. And then things you'd like cut out completely, like eliminating, and I forgot what R stands for. But yeah, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel.
Yeah.
You don't
have to like improvise.
Exactly. Yeah. You just, because other people have done the hard work for you. You just take it and you like
Other people have done
rework
the hard
stuff.
work for you.
Yeah.
Making it happy, right?
This is a question, by the way. I genuinely don't know. If someone like Stride Masiwa, if someone like Stride Masiwa comes and invests in Zimbabwe, right? He starts up a company. Are we guaranteed that the money that he makes, is it going to be spent? Because that's the point, right? You want money to circulate within the country, right?
Not outside.
Not outside. So is he going to spend the money inside? Is he going to buy a Zimbabwe assembled car, a BT50?
People are different. Naturally, with all of us sitting here, we have different views. So if we had the same circuit, if we were in the same circumstances as Strive and we were to invest, our reactions would be different. Maybe I would do it because I want to exploit it. She would do it because she genuinely loves her country and she feels like she needs to give back to it. So I can't answer for. It's not rare. They actually no. It's not rare. Just because it's not.
How many rich people drive BT?
No, like listen. It's
How
not
many rich people drive BT?
I don't think it's rare. Like this.
That's a simple question,
You know the golden leaf? The thing that we've been calling the golden leaf? What's that? Tobacco.
Tobacco.
Exactly. Do you know what is the basis of our tobacco sales in Zimbabwe?
People need to do
American, what? British? Is it
British American tobacco.
British American
It's a
tobacco.
foreign country.
Yeah.
Foreign country.
And they're making all of our money.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And that's where our economy is walking.
Our economy is being held by the British American Tobacco Company. Bakers in bread is 31% Zimbabwean ingredients. 31% Zimbabwean ingredients. Try take the stuff, the wheat from your house, from your farm, and try make
Okay,
bread
I have a
and
question
see.
for
And
you
see.
guys.
Wait, can I finish? And then see if it will come out like bakers in bread. If we're saying the foreign investment you guys are talking about, we come, they put into bakers in, right?
I just have a question, like a legit question. I understand what you guys are saying. Like, I'm not opposed to it entirely. I mean, I understand. I'm just saying that it's not the most beneficial thing to us. But I see where you're coming from. My question to you is, why would you guys want to do something that will give you results within five years when you've been waiting for the past 40 years? You can't wait for another 40 years.
Can we embrace the origins of the education system? Because I think once we actually understand that, I think we'll understand why people have been having this discussion for the last 500 years. It's because it was not made to help you individually thrive.
Yes, it's an economy thing.
It's an economy thing. This is politics. This is society. This is, and I actually finished reading a paper on it a few months ago. Democracy and education, or governance and education, go hand in hand. There's a reason Mugabe can be here for 37 years. There is a reason.
Africa needs to develop as a whole, because you can't expect to do well by yourselves. Yes. Like South Africa will never completely do super well because it's surrounded by Asana, Zimbabwe, Disnamari. We should be working as a...
like how the European...
Exactly, Europe is doing...
us.
Do you guys think the school system is correct in making parents pay for their children's education?
Until our economies grow I feel like it makes sense to make parents pay because the teachers do have families as well and they have to be paid. Maybe if we said they were being taught by volunteers, like the teachers were all magically, I don't know how, but magically volunteers and they didn't want to be paid, maybe, yeah, but because teachers have to be paid, resources, books, etc., etc., I think it's
we
just
pay tax, don't we?
Free education, right?
Yeah.
We call it's free education to us, but free education is government paid
for, exactly,
education. So you look at the trends. Where do you find free education, right? You find it in countries like Germany, right? You find it in fact, it's not even in the United States. There isn't. It's there in the private room, but it doesn't go to tertiary.
Guys are supposed to be taking garbage and stuff. They're supposed to be being paid by the government, and already they're not doing it as effectively as they should be. That's a sign that the government is struggling with their funds. So if we're moving more money into
I think
free
it's corrupt.
education,
It's not.
Yeah,
Not okay.
but
Wait, guys, let me tell you
apart
something
from
about
that-
corruption, right?
Yeah.
People in Zimbabwe complain too much about corruption. We about corruption,
That's
but
all.
if you really
Yeah.
read around,
Yeah.
what you realize is that we're not that corrupt. Like, even within Africa and even within the world, we're not that corrupt. We shouldn't complain about corruption too much. Like, okay, obviously we should, because it's bad.
To add on to that,
But-
corruption is everywhere.
It's everywhere. And like,
Yeah.
we're actually like on the bottom end of it.
Hmm.
But I think, okay, I actually just realized one of the problem actually is tax. But the problem is that like a crazy percentage of our country is in the informal sector. Taxes
And they
are,
don't
the
pay.
government can't, they don't say that they don't pay, but because they're in the informal sector, they're not taxed.
Yeah.
But I think the problem is also with us, we should be responsible citizens. Pay your taxes so that when you do complain about corruption, you're complaining for something. Don't be a vendor or someone who's not paying tax because you don't want to, and then tomorrow comes and they're like, they're so corrupt. What corruption are you speaking of? You don't pay tax, it's not your money.
I do agree that we can't have free education in Zimbabwe, but we should have need-based education. And instead of like saying it's for free for everyone, but for like people in the rural areas, they deserve to get an education. They can't afford to. And so it should be need-based, that's just why.
The education that is in the rural areas is a direct translation to the training that the teachers got, the quality of the training the teachers got, and the systems around that. I'm not saying it's the only one, but it's definitely a factor that plays in. So before we can even pay for everyone's education, before we even think of
child's own
improving,
literacy,
improving everyone, can we afford to?
STEM, where they're paying for science. No, wait. Do you know how many students are in STEM? Do you know how
And
much money the
they
government?
actually
And we
pay.
don't have a science industry. Let's bear that in mind. Zimbabwe does not have a science industry. What engineers are you trying to groom to work where? We have so many people with science degrees who are teaching. That's why science students are failing the most in Zimbabwe, SIMSEC, that is, because the teachers that teach are people who went to get engineering degrees, but they don't have jobs because Zimbabwe doesn't have a science industry. Now that money that they're using, and it's millions, if not billions a year, they could be using to actually start a science industry, to get things running, factories that are almost dead and those that are closed to reopen. But no, we're paying for more science students to get more degrees in science, and then what? They sit at home.
The first thing you said is inflation. That's wrong, right? So inflation is actually caused by us, right? So I'll start by explaining it. Like, this is the issue I can explain. Like, the value of a currency is determined mainly actually by what we believe, right? A dollar is only worth a dollar because I believe it's worth a dollar. There are lots of budgets in the country that overrule education. Yeah, like healthcare. Healthcare will always overrule education, right? There are lots of things like that, right? That overrule education. And guess what? Even things like defense budgets, they're there, and they actually take up a lot of money, right? And what you also need to realize that the government actually does subsidize most of those costs already, with the way it's struggling, right? So for them to now, and for education to become free, what you need to realize that the government needs to take it all on. Absolutely. We're importing more than we're exporting, and that's a big problem, right? So I'm sure you can work that out. So imagine you as a country, you're buying more than you're selling. We're losing money, right? I think what's going to save us is that we've just got a ton of natural resources just chilling. I think actually that's what's going to save us. But our industry, they're just not there. And the informal sector, yeah, I think we can blame the government and the inflation for that slightly, because people aren't confident enough to move into the formal sector. I think people don't see it as being worth it. But even if the government found a way to get all that money out of the informal sector, guess what? It's not going to be enough. It's still not going to be enough, right? Because even if we say there's $1 billion relaxing in the informal sector, right? Guess what happens? Fine, we get it out. Let's say we get it out today. Do you know what that will do? Literally, that will only mean that we're gonna meet the amount of money we need for this year's budget. Richer people get taxed more than poorer people, and you see it in some.
Can I explain that? Can I at least try explaining that? We walk into a bar. This is my favorite explanation for that one. We walk into a bar, 3 of us, right? 1, 2, 3. Yeah. He pays $4. No, 8. You pay 4. I pay 2. Right? And we all. This is the same tab, and we all get 3, 3, 3. Right? 3 drinks. We all get 9 drinks. 3 drinks. 3 drinks. Right? When the price is cut to half, he's now not paying 8. He's paying 4. You're not paying 2, you're not paying 4, you're not paying 2. I'm not paying 1, I'm not paying 50 cents. But then you say, oh no, but he got from $8 to $4.
Right.
But he's paying more. Naturally. Half of my dad's salary is taken by, I think it's 50% of his salary. He was appointed 50% of his salary was being taken by the government. He actually didn't even see the need of being promoted, because the more the salary, the less he has. So he just gets it in benefits.
The thing is, if you make a profit, you're supposed to pay tax. If you make a loss, you get some money back.
Yeah.
Right? So if you're going to say that we're going to be paying tax if you have $1 billion company and you want to pay the same tax that's being paid by someone who has $100 check.
You get money back if you make a loss.
If you make a loss, you're supposed to get money back. There was actually a time. The thing that happens in Zimbabwe now is that many entrepreneurs that we have, they don't actually pay tax. And I'm not proud of this, but then I've noticed how, like, many people in town, if you go to those photocopying things, you see they come with this funny Zimmer thing. It's called what's it called? Tax something. And then they sort it out. They forge the thing so that when they're going to get a tender, they just go with it. Then they we pay tax, but they don't. So what happens now is Zimmer is going to say in 5 years' time, we're going to have people who have been paying taxes for the past 5 years to come through so that we can see your records to see whether we're going to reimburse you or we're going to tax you. And people don't go because people don't pay tax.
I'm not opposed to businesses that make more being taxed more because it's a business. But I am opposed to your personal salary in the sense that you don't, unless if they're telling me that you know everyone's circumstance, that this person has A, B, C, D, because maybe you have a special need, or maybe you take care of not just your family but your mom and your dad, and you know, I'm just saying it's possible.
Because what's the difference between being a educated and learned person is that a learned person applies his education in his own life. But an educated person is just accumulating information and is not applying that knowledge into his own individual life.
Yeah. Just kind of like to sum up as well, there's one thing that he said that I really agree with, the working 10 times harder thing. There's this analogy, I'm pretty sure if you know it, which is why does the A student always work with the C student, right? And it's quite simple, it's because the C student is always just going to work harder. He knows he has to put in more work, right? And I think that applies to life, so for example, if you drop out, you just have to work hard, right? And then coming again to, I don't know who said it, but just because you drop out doesn't mean that you want to be an entrepreneur, right? Like Chelsea said, it comes down to you and what you want. Some people drop out because, to be honest, school just isn't for them. And then something he said about university, just to prove you wrong. just to kind of no, not just. But because about university, you said that do we count university as just to kind of show how we've kind of, I don't use the word evolved, but things have changed, right? And one way of showing me that is that I don't have to finish my secondary education to get into tertiary education, that, right? So for example, I can finish at Form 4, I can do my foundation, and I think that's that in itself is just a big sign that what, even for university itself, some of the things that you're going to learn aren't necessarily, you cannot say relevant, but it doesn't all apply. And there are unique ways of doing that, and everyone's situation is different, which brings me to what you had said, right? You talked about Mark Zuckerberg, right? But I feel like that's just what you know, right? So there's so many situations, right? So there are people, there are students who actually study and do things, right? And then they drop out after high school, right? Because they've been working also in high school, right? Which then brings me to my second last point. It's very seldom do you actually need to drop out to really do what you want. So even if you're an entrepreneur, you very seldom will you actually have to drop out to start your business. Right? If you're being serious in life, you can actually grind enough to be able to do it at the same time.
It depends on what magnitude.
Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So it really depends. But in most situations, there are very few situations you'd actually have to drop out to give something like that much time.
The internet is a good thing. Like there's so much information, so you might not actually need to go to a formal education to know what the other person knows. You can just search it up and get your information and equip yourself, to be to compete, with that person, because the world is very competitive. You're up against a lot of competition, so you need to know what you need to have that competitive advantage.
It's like you always need a reference point. You need some sort of accreditation. So in as much as
you don't always need one.
Fine, most of the time you need accreditation, and someone who's accredited will have an edge over you. So you can't go for a job interview and be like, oh, I read it on the internet.
Our education system goes beyond this discussion we're having. It's literally, my friend calls it population control. I just call it like what she was saying. They just can make decent citizens out of us, to be very honest.
And it's like a control system. They want to control you and stuff. It's
to push a political agenda.
Exactly, push a political agenda. So if you really want to go against the grain, then you really have to be equipped
From up there.
Yeah. But then if you want to take the easy way, then formal education, get your job. It's easy stuff. Yeah.
I'm so focused. These days I'm so focused. These days I'm so focused.